This whole Jalen Ramsey trade scenario with the Dolphins is absolutely wild. And honestly, Chris Grier's press conference raises way more red flags than it answers questions. When a GM goes out his way to say it was an internal decision after weeks of discussions, without actually explaining what those discussions were about, that's basically corporate speak for something went down that we're not going to tell you about. The timing here is what really doesn't add up. We're talking about a cornerback who just had a solid 2024 season, 2 interceptions, 11 pass breakups, and an 83, 2 passer rating allowed. Those aren't the numbers of a guy who's clearly washed up or causing obvious problems on the field. For a 30-year-old corner, that production actually suggests he's still got plenty left in the tank. But here's what really makes no sense. The Dolphins are supposedly in win-now mode with Tua Tagovailoa, and they just voluntarily decided to get rid of one of the best cornerbacks in the league. That's not a move that championship window teams typically make unless there are some serious behind-the-scenes factors that aren't being made public. Grier's emphasis on specifically stating that Ramsey never requested a trade and didn't ask for more money is telling. When a GM feels a need to specifically deny those two things, it usually means there are other issues at play. If it wasn't money and it wasn't trade request, then what exactly were these internal discussions that led to this decision? The financial aspect of this trade doesn't make sense from Miami's perspective either. They're going to have to eat significant dead money on the salary cap, and they're probably not going to get first or second round draft value in return. That's exactly the kind of move teams make when they're desperate to get rid of a player, not when they're making a purely football-based decision. The language Grier uses, it would probably be in the best interest of all parties to move forward separately. Sounds like corporate PR trying to smooth over a situation that was probably way messier than they're letting on. That's the kind of phrase you hear when there are personality conflicts, locker room issues, or philosophical disagreements about how the game should be played. What makes this even more intriguing is Ramsey's history. He had issues with the Jaguars organization before getting traded, but seemed to settle in well in Los Angeles and then Miami. If there were enough problems to force another trade, that suggests there might be patterns of behavior or expectations that aren't being met. The time pressure is also interesting. Grier mentioned they could make the trade before or during the draft, which suggests they want this resolved quickly. That's not typical of a situation where you have all the leverage and can wait for the best possible offer. It sounds more like a situation where they want this handled before it becomes a bigger problem. From other teams' perspectives, Ramsey still represents tremendous value. An elite cornerback with his track record and recent production doesn't become available often, especially during the season. Contending teams that need secondary help are going to be very interested, even knowing there's clearly more to the story than Miami is revealing. The question of how this affects team chemistry is fascinating too. When you voluntarily get rid of one of your best defensive players without a clear explanation, that sends a message to the rest of the locker room. It could be a message about standards and expectations, or it could create uncertainty about who might be next. What strikes me most is how Grier is trying to control the narrative by specifically denying certain motivations while keeping other issues secret. He's trying to protect both Ramsey and the organization, but that inevitably leads to more speculation about what really happened. The reality is that successful teams don't make this kind of move unless they feel like they have no choice. If Miami truly believes they're in position to compete for a championship, voluntarily trading away an elite cornerback suggests the behind-the-scenes problems were significant enough to justify weakening the team on the field. The market for Ramsey will probably be robust, especially with contending teams that need secondary help. But the fact that Miami is willing to accept less value than he's worth on paper suggests urgency in resolving the situation, which gives more bargaining power to interested teams. At the end of the day, this situation is a reminder that football is as much about locker room dynamics and chemistry as it is about pure talent. Sometimes even talented players need to be moved if they don't fit the culture or expectations of the organization. What do you think really went down behind the scenes here? Because Grier's explanation feels like there's a whole lot more to this story than what we're hearing publicly.